It's the Morning Star Drive 117.8. You soaring up with sky, now's the time, don't delay. I'm sitting in my ride and it's time to fly. So let's realign, just listen and fill your mind.
Hey guys, how's it going? It's Tuesday, December 20th, and this is the Morning Star Drive on 117.8. We're on YouTube, so make sure to subscribe, follow us on SoundCloud, and make sure to support us on Patreon. So what is happening on this wonderful Tuesday? We've got current news from around the world, the practical word study, and of course we have Provi in the media. All right, everyone, how are you doing? It is Tuesday. Monday is officially over, the hardest day of the week, but we are getting straight into the middle and just the meat of the week. So hope you guys are really enjoying your week so far, and super thankful you're joining us here on the Morning Star Drive. Keep liking, keep commenting, want to hear from you guys, see how you're doing, and let us build this community. I think this is one of the most important things that matters to me more than anything else from this podcast. Build a community. All of us can talk. We can all have an open platform where we can say the things we really, really want to say. And I'm going to tell you right now, when I first started this, of course, the first week of this podcast, everyone was just wondering, oh, what is this? And there's a lot of viewers. But, as you get into more and more of this podcast, we started off averaging anywhere from 30 to 40 listeners. And now with both SoundCloud and YouTube combined, we're getting about 200 listeners per day, which is awesome. So if you are benefiting from this, go ahead and tell your friends and family in province, obviously only for members, but even newcomers too. I think they can really benefit from this podcast also. And if you have anything, just let me know if there's anything else that you want to say, any testimonies, put them in the comments below. Would love to hear about that. Q&A Thursday is just around the corner. So get your questions ready for this week. It is a very popular segment and I enjoy it very much, just hearing what is going on around the world and the different questions that we have when it comes to our life in this history. I had an interesting question with someone the other day. Just yesterday, I had an interesting conversation, and personally, I love opinions, and I love when people bring up their own thoughts. And I just want to, when they brought this up, it made me think first, oh, that's a very good point, interesting point. And then I would counter in my mind, oh, I might need some time to think about this, or, I can probably be able to answer this right away. So the conversation I was having was someone was telling me that maybe Provi in the media segment, the one that I'm doing today, am I forcing people to listen to the news about the trial where some people may not want to hear about it? Some people would rather focus on other things and not on the trial and really focus on making it themselves or their missions or whatever else, right? And they were asking me the question well, don't you think that if you put it on your podcast and it kind of forces people to listen to it, right? And, I was listening to it, oh, okay, that's quite interesting. Yeah, it's true, because now that I've posted on my podcast, then people are going to hear about it, right? So this is kind of my take on this, because I do know this was something that was brought up in the past, is hey, maybe members are going to stumble because they hear about the news of the trial. Maybe they're going to stumble for this and that. And my take is I am very much into free will. Right? And for me too, when it comes to anything about Sunsteam's trial, I do want to think about it as in, will it hurt the trial or not? That's the baseline for everything. What I say, can the people use it against me against Sunsteam in the trial? And that's something I don't want to do. I don't want to say anything, but you guys do need to know that this podcast is my opinion, right? This is my thoughts, my opinion on stuff that's going on around. And, this trial is not a secret either. Anyone can go and find it on the internet. The only problem is it's mainly in Korean, and that's why foreign countries won't get the chance to actually look at these things, right? But ultimately, my take is, if people don't want to listen to it, they don't need to. No one is forcing anyone to listen to my take or listen to what's going on with Sunsteam's trial. Everyone has free will. All this information is public and available, right? I'm just putting it into one spot so people can listen to it. And if you think about it, for instance, I think the whole world knows it's going on in Providence. So we all know the trial's going on, right? We know something happened last Friday, or some people may not know it was last Friday, but everyone knows about it, and everyone has their own free will whether they want to listen to the information or not. That's publicly available and not a secret, right? So my take is, if you don't want to listen to it, if you think you'll be affected by it, and you know yourself really well, you don't have to, right? And if you guys kind of look at, I know my statistics when it comes to my podcast. My podcast is usually about, like 70 to 80 minutes, 70 to 90 minutes, somewhere in there. So let's just say the average is 80 minutes, an hour and 20 minutes. And the average person listens to it for about 25 to 30 minutes, which means people are picking and choosing their parts anyways, right? So I'm going to tell you guys, if you know yourselves well, you might get affected by it. You guys are adults. We're grown up. Don't listen to this last section today on Provi in the media, right? I'm going to talk about the trial, right? Just what happened on Friday, second day of trial, right? And if you want to listen to it, sure, it's up to you. But I do think one thing is, if some people are going to stumble by it, I'm not the type of person that thinks, well, if some people are going to stumble by it, then don't put it up at all, right? Because for me, it seems like we're kind of treating people like children, which I don't want to, right? Like people have their own volition, their own free will. If they want to listen, they can. If they don't have to, right? So for my thing is, I'm not going to stop putting stuff up because of a few people or some people. And guess what? This is a free market, which means that not every, like, put it this way. There's like probably in the world, like there's about 1,000 people that speak English in the English-speaking world, right? There's about 500 in America, so there's 500 right there that speak English. If you include Canada, maybe 600. If you include Europe, maybe 700. Australia, 800. And you know that I'm being very generous with the numbers, right? And Malaysia, 700, but not all of them speak like English. So I'll say maybe a third of them, which means like another 200-300. So we're probably looking at about 1,000 people that, and some people in Korea and stuff like that too, or Japan or Taiwan. But you know, it's a very small number. You know, and people are, you know, it's a free market, which means people listen to only things that they want to listen to. So if I'm forcing people, then that would be like, oh, guess what? Then I would have 1,000 people listening to my podcast every day. But no, people pick and choose what they want. They like it, they like it. They don't. And since it's a free market, no one has to listen to my podcast. And even people listen to my podcast itself. People pick and choose what they want to listen to. It's up to them, right? So my take is, if you don't want to hear about it, turn off this podcast before the last segment. You have every right to do that, and I will not force anyone to listen to my entire podcast. And if someone says like, well, it's already out in public, so, why would you need to say it again anyways? And my answer is, well, because when it comes to the Western world, I don't think many people understand Korean, right? I don't know how many news articles there are in English out there, right? And I find it much, much easier for me to just look at the facts, talk about it in my own opinion, in my own thoughts. And, people listen if they want. They don't have to. They don't want to listen to either. It's really, really up to them. It really is. And that's why for me, I understand though. I do understand from a leader's perspective that some people are worried about those that will be affected by the news of the trial. I do understand that. I do. But personally speaking, I do think we're a lot more grown up than people, I do think sometimes leaders treat people like children, like they can't handle this, but they don't know. They really don't. Can some people not, can everyone handle it? The answer is no. But that doesn't mean you should not put up anything at all, right? I'd rather people handle it and learn on their own instead of trying to kind of, treat people with, put them in a bubble, like, oh no, they're gonna struggle. Oh no, that's something that only happens to children. And this might sound a little bit harsh, but I think it's the wrong way to lead. That's just my opinion, right? I think it's the wrong way to lead, right? The more adversity and the more struggles people go through, the stronger they get. And the stronger they get, the more harder the difficulties are able to handle. That's just reality of psychology and science, right? So for me, I'm still going to do it today. I have no issues with it because it's just going to be facts about what happened. It's going to be very short today because people just want to know, what happened in that last trial date on December 16th, which was Friday? What happened there? Oh, okay. So that's what happened there. Now I can pray a little bit more about this or this or that or this. That's all it really is, right? So that is my take on it. And I think it was a great question. And I do think it's something that people should be able to ask. Without being ridiculed. Like, I don't think that people should be ridiculed in their questions or in their thoughts because it is an opinion. And if they have that opinion, that's great. And you know what? It's almost like this. I was listening to a podcast, and this woman talks to this man, and they said, "Oh, you're sexist because," I know everyone's grown up listening to this. I know not a lot of young people listen to this, right? So this is a very, very controversial guy. His name is Andrew Tate, right? And he's just out there. He speaks a lot of truth, but he's also seen as very sexist and stuff like that also. And the woman comes up to him and says, "Hey, how can you say that that you as a man can go around and be with as many women as you want, but then the woman that you marry cannot?" And he basically says, "That's just my philosophy. If you don't like it, then you don't have to be with me, right? So, but you can have your own opinion. You can have your own guiding light, and that's exactly it. It's the respect of other people, and not. I really want everyone to be respected, and their own opinions should be respected. And if it turns into a debate, meaning someone wants to know, do you think this is the right way to think? I would bring up the pros and cons. I say here's a pros and cons. This is why I believe this way, right? And the answer should be up to the person how they want to live, how they want to truly believe. The only thing that really, really is not negotiable would be things when it comes to providence truths, like the truth that God brings in, right? When it comes to the words of God, those are things that really can't be negotiated, right? They can't, right? And those are things that we have to have, we have to have truth as a basis. But ultimately, I do think everyone can have their opinion. They can have their thoughts, like something like this, as in, do you think it's okay to put this if a lot of people are going to struggle about this? Or if people don't want to focus on this, but you bring it up? And my second thing is, this trial is once a month. If just getting an update once a month on what actually happened in the trial is going to be a problem for people, and they can't really focus for another month until my next, update on the trial, then I think that's more of a problem with the individual rather than me. And I think if that person's if that person's grown up and mature, they should be able to handle themselves and say, I struggled with this last time, so I don't want to listen to it today. That's fine. Absolutely up to them. And I'm cool with that too, right? Think about it. I'd be upset if imagine me saying, "Hey, how come you guys, the average listener, only listens to 30 minutes of my 90-minute podcast?" Rah! That's personal choice. People can pick and choose whatever they want to listen to. If they want to listen to it, go ahead. I have no problem with it. I don't, right? So that's kind of my reasoning and my opinion, right? And a lot of this stuff is going to be about my opinion from my experiences and what I know from my last 24 years in Providence. It doesn't mean I'm always right. Doesn't. Right? But it's something that everyone should know. It's my opinion, right? I'm not hired by Providence. I'm not paid by Providence. Honestly, the only people I'm paid by is you guys. That's it. That's what a free market is, right? I'm not paid by Providence. I'm not part of any organization in Providence telling me I can do this or not do that. This is purely me doing this as my own thing, as my own podcast for members that I think will be beneficial. And I leave it open to you guys. And if you think about it, in kind of a sense, I work for you guys. And what does that mean? It means that if my stuff isn't good enough, no one's going to support me on Patreon. That's just the way it is, right? No one's going to support me on Patreon if it's not something you want to listen to. So technically speaking, I'm not even supported by anyone except you guys. So I almost in one sense, I kind of work for you guys. And if I ever stray from what you guys think is right or proper, then you guys would stop paying me or you'd stop supporting me on Patreon. So for me, just let everyone know I am not paid by anyone in Providence. I mean, like a church. I'm not paid by a church. I'm not paid by headquarters or IMD, all that type of stuff. Nothing connected to them. And if you guys know if you guys know me, I'm a pretty free guy, and I'm very, very okay with saying no to people. I don't really care. If I don't want to do it, I'm not going to do it, right? If it's not something that I feel that's beneficial, for Providence and myself, I'm just not going to do it. It's not something that I would do myself. So, and those of you guys know my character too. If I don't like it, I don't like it. And now that I'm, one thing I do find myself in a position is when I'm not being paid by the churches or whatever, or being paid by, the higher organizations or whatever, I'm not subject to, I have to do what they say. And personally, I think there's bad parts to that, and there's also good parts to it, because then what if, we need to know that the good parts about it is is sometimes the people in the higher places could be wrong, right? They could be wrong. Like, let's just say when it comes to like talking about like Sunsteam's trial, whatever it is, they could be wrong, right? They have their opinions. I have my own opinion, and we both have the same goal: to uphold Providence, to make Providence better and better, right? So when I look at that, I look at that and say, yeah, we're all on the same team. We might have different ways and methods of doing things, and we don't have to all do it the same way, right? We don't all have to agree, but we have the same goal, right? And no one's maliciously trying to hurt or put bad intent in there. So that is something that I look at and say, yeah, that's something I think is a very, very healthy way of having a good society inside Providence where, yeah, we may disagree, but it's okay. As long as we have the same goal, we're not hurting like the whole system altogether. Can we make everyone happy? And the answer is absolutely not. We can't. There's going to be tons of times where we might say something or do something, and some people are happy and some people aren't. It's just the way it is, right? Look at politics also. Like, when you look at Trump and Biden, it was 50 point something percent to 49 point something percent. It's like half the country, right? 75 million people voted for Trump, while there was like 80 something million for like Biden or whatever it was, right? So when you kind of look at it in the long run, it's like, well, it's not like it's a landslide. Some people agree, some people don't. And I think that's something that we have to learn to, it's like a marriage, right? We have a marriage with with Providence. We have a marriage with the organizations, with the churches and headquarters, whatever it is. And in that marriage, we're going to have arguments, but we all have the same goal in mind, right? We really do. We really want Providence to grow and become better. And, one person might think it's better this way. One person thinks it's better the other way. But you know what? In the end, which one's going to be better? The answer is we'll know as time goes on. And as people try new things, we're going to see, whoa, that didn't work. And then we move forward, right? Okay. So that's kind of an interesting conversation. By the way, I love these conversations. And I hope that no one feels like I'm trying to say one opinion is better than the other. But I'm just telling you guys my side of why I'm still going to do Provi in the media. Like, I have no problem with it. And I'm sure those of you guys out there are going to comment on this, that some of you are going to agree with me and some of you won't, and that's okay. And that's okay, all right? So Provi in the media today is going to be an update on the second trial that was on Friday. It's a very short one, and then a couple of, it's going to be an op-ed. So I'm going to just give you I'm going to opine, give my opinion on what I think we could pray for and stuff for the future too. All right, so I do have a new poll that just came out. What was the thing that originally attracted you to Providence, right? Remember, attracted you. It's not like what made you realize, because if it's what made you realize, it's probably one of two things. It's going to be like Sunsteam, or it's going to be the word, or it's going to be one of those two things. But what attracted you to Providence, right? Was it the word? Was it the community of members, like the way they acted and how they were, how they treated you? Was it Sunsteam, or was it praise? Like, what was the thing that originally attracted? That's the big word, is attracted, right? And if it's none of those four things, you can pick the fifth one, which is other, and you can comment below what was the thing that attracted you. Remember, not realize, but attracted you to come to Providence. All right, so that's going to be the big thing there. For myself, I posted word. That was the number one thing, because I didn't really want to be in the community. I wasn't someone who was like attracted to like, oh, this is such a great community, because I already had a church I was going to. But it was the word that was like, holy smokes, I'm going to come just for this, because everything else I'm not so interested in. But that was for me. I'm not sure about you guys. Go ahead, comment, or vote in the poll, all right? So Espresso with Sky, just sorry about that. There is going to be a video this week for sure. The video's already out. My editor, very, very busy right now because, it's Christmas time. It's the 20th, 5 days away from Christmas. And in this, one thing we do need to know is it's a busy time in Providence too. So my editor is very, very busy, but the video will come out this week for sure. And then I'm going to put out a Christmas video also. All right, so let's get this show started with some music from member artists from around the world. And we're going to start off with today's feature artist of the day, which is Zeniac from the Paper Music Associates in Korea. I love this artist, post-rock. I don't know what that means, but his music is awesome. He's also on this podcast. Like, he comments and stuff like that too, so I'm really happy that he's here. We're going to listen to one of his really, really good songs. It's called Star Launcher. After that, we have The Sky from Japan with Spring Emotion. And we'll end things off with Chunghae from Dialings in Korea with her first solo.
たいだ春の風に触ったみたいだ僕の声が君と重なる心の中見せてください新しい景色新しい時も今までの記憶消えて生まれ変わるみたいに君の愛の雨ください切ないほどに離れないまま言葉じゃなくていいからずっとずっとそばで声が届くようにと枯れた涙で祈るばかりだ別々の世界に分かれていても未だに信じているよ春の雨に打たれて君の愛寂しい気持ちこらえながら言葉でだけでいいただ忘れていないと澄んだ空が目の奥を突き刺している水面に映るあなたがいる世界に君の愛の雨ください切ないほどに離れないまま言葉じゃなくていいただずっとずっとそばで
어디서부터 어디까지 생각해야 할지 이 작은 한 걸음조차 어디일지 들지 머리가 온통 하얘질 때 내 지난 길 돌아보면 그대라는 희망이 빛나요 시기와 음해로 얼룩진 말들에 내 진심이 패이지 않게 그대를 등불 삼아 난 나아가요 어려움도 아픔도 이 또한 지나가는 중인데 나를 주어진 길을 난 사랑내겠어요 진심을 가장한 이기심에 거친 참견들 적당히 듣는 척 흘리는 팁에 그대가 준 용기와 사랑이 내 믿음과 기적이 돼 힘내어 나아가요 지켜봐줘요 And keep in mind 묻어있던 걱정들은 털어내 흘러가는 시간과 섭리의 흐름에 맡겨 And keep it up 저는 아직 우릴 위해 나아갈게요 There's all water under the bridge now The truth is diamonds 따띠라 따따띠 따따따띠라 따따라라리라 뚜뚜 따뚜 따따뚜
that was Chunghae from Wings in Korea with Dear Mai. Before that, The Sky from Japan with Spring Emotion. And of course, feature artist of the day, that is Zeniac from PMA in Korea with Star Launcher. All right, so let's get into some news going on around the world. What has happened over the last 24 hours? And of course, as brides of this history, we do have the responsibility to pray for the world. However, in order to pray for the world, we really need to know what is happening. So let's go back to China. What is going on with that COVID scare over there? Health experts are predicting 3 winter waves. A top Chinese health official says he believes China is experiencing the first of 3 expected waves of COVID infections this winter. The country is seeing a surge in cases since the lifting of its most severe restrictions earlier this month. The latest official figures appear to show a relatively low number of new daily cases. However, there are concerns that these numbers are an underestimate due to a recent reduction in COVID testing. The government reported only 2,097 new daily cases on Sunday. Epidemiologist Wu Zunyao has said he believes the current spike in infections would run until mid-January, while the second wave would then be triggered by mass travel in January around the week-long Lunar New Year celebrations, which begins on January 21st, and millions of people usually travel at this time to spend the holiday with family. The third surge in cases would run from late February to mid-March as people return to work after the holiday. He told the conference on Saturday that current vaccination levels offered a certain level of protection against the surges and had resulted in a drop in the number of severe cases. Overall, China says more than 90% of its population has been fully vaccinated. However, less than half of people aged 80 and over have received 3 doses of vaccine. Elderly people are more likely to suffer severe COVID symptoms, and China has developed and produced its own vaccines, which have been shown to be less effective at protecting people against serious COVID illness and death than the mRNA vaccines used in much of the rest of the world. Dr. Wu's comments come after a reputable US-based research institute reported earlier this week that it believed China could see over 1 million people die from COVID in 2023 following an explosion of cases. The government hasn't officially reported any COVID deaths since December 7th, when restrictions were lifted following mass protests against its zero COVID policy. That included an end to mass testing. However, there are anecdotal reports of deaths linked to COVID appearing in Beijing. Hospitals there and in other cities are struggling to cope with the surge, which has also hit postal and catering services hard. Meanwhile, China's largest city, Shanghai, has ordered most of its schools to take classes online as cases soar. So, it's very interesting that it's happening now for China because they've been doing these lockdowns for so long, and you kind of get an idea that you kind of have to let this COVID run through the population. Right? Like, protect the people who are most vulnerable to it, but you got to let it run through, right? Or else it's going to be, they said that there's going to be more chances of mutations and stronger mutations coming out that vaccines are ineffective to, right? And, the latest, I was watching a program on the efficacy, like how effective are vaccines like the Pfizer, Moderna, and the numbers keep going down. It was 96, 97%, but it keeps going down with time. Like, you'll see that it drops all the way down to even a third, like 33% at a certain point, right? That's why you need to get like boosters and stuff like that too. But then again, the death rate, like the people who are, how deadly is the COVID-19? It's actually so low that like 99 point something percent of people will survive it. 99 point something percent. So it's not something where you got to take a look at it and say, oh, I have to take this or not. But all the studies are coming out now, and it's kind of like what people were saying in the past, right? Let's move over to Afghanistan. And there's this tunnel called the Salang Tunnel, and 19 killed and dozens are injured in a fire. So an oil tanker overturned and caught fire in the Salang Tunnel, which links the capital Kabul to the northern provinces on Saturday evening. The blaze spread to other vehicles before it was put out the next morning, and pictures posted on social media showed several vehicles totally charred after the incident. The fuel tanker exploded. People just fell to the ground. Clothes caught on fire. Like, these are what witnesses are saying. People that were wounded in the tunnel, and some of the bodies were so severely burned, people said they couldn't tell if it was a guy or a girl, right? And at least 32 people were wounded. Another official said it's thought the number of casualties would still rise. The Ministry of Public Works said the pass had been closed to traffic while rescue operations were carried out. The Salang Tunnel, it's not a small tunnel. It's 2.6 kilometers. right? That's how long the tunnel is. And it's located at an altitude of around 3,400 meters. And it hailed as an engineering masterpiece on its completion in the 60s by the Soviet Union. The major route through the Hindu Kush Mountains is often shut for days because of accidents and avalanches. So a fire in the tunnel in 1982 killed 400 people, although some estimates put the death toll in the thousands, right? So thank God this one's only 19 people, and the number will rise, but only 32 are severely injured right now. So let's see what happens here. Prayers go out to all the families that lost their loved ones. Last but not least, we'll go to Iraq, back to the Middle East once again. At least 9 police killed in a bomb and gun attack. So officers have been killed in a bomb and gun attack in northern Iraq. The attack took place near the oil-rich city of Kirkuk, about 290 kilometers from the capital Baghdad. On Sunday, the Islamic State group has claimed responsibility. IS has already said it was behind the planting of a roadside bomb that killed 3 Iraqi soldiers near Baghdad on Wednesday. Sunday's attack began when a bomb blast targeted a truck carrying police near the village of Chalal al-Matar. Officials told AFP the blast was followed by a direct attack with small arms. An assailant has been killed, and people are looking for the others. The officials added, saying the 2 policemen were also wounded in the attack. An official from the Ministry of the Interior in Baghdad confirmed the attack. IS once held 88,000 square kilometers of territory stretching from eastern Iraq to western Syria and imposed its brutal rule on almost 8 million people. But Iraqi forces declared victory over the Islamist group in December 2017 after its troops drove IS militants from the Syrian border zone where the Islamist final strongholds had been. The group was driven from its last territory in 2019, but the UN warned in July that it remained a persistent threat, and it's estimated to have between 6,000 and 10,000 fighters in Syria and Iraq, who are based mostly in rural areas and continue to carry out hit-and-run attacks, ambushes, and roadside bombings. In its report, the UN observed that despite significant leadership losses, the group has been able to exploit security gaps and conditions conducive to the spread of terrorism to recruit and to organize and execute complex attacks. So yeah, a lot of this stuff is going on around the world. Chaos is ensuing because it's just a chaotic time, and I really hope that we can also see that there's a time where Satan is bringing chaos in, but we need to pray, come to the Holy Spirit who brings order to all things. All right? So let's move into sporting news. And of course, this was on yesterday. For us here, it was so late at night that I didn't report about it, but I watched the game. It was honestly the best game I have ever watched in soccer, ever. So much action, so much I'm not sure if you guys watched it too. It was the most incredible, and this is the World Cup finals. And that's what made it even more amazing is everything was on the line for these 2 countries, right? And, I was so happy for Lionel Messi finally achieving his World Cup dream as Argentina wins their 3rd crown on penalties in one of the greatest finals in the tournament's history. The shootout was won 4-2 after 2 players missed. Well, one was blocked and one was missed from the French side. And man, France did not go without, the score was 3-3. And if you guys watch the game, it was incredible. Lionel Messi gets a penalty kick, so it's 1-0. Then Angel Di Maria scores a second goal, it's 2-0 until the 75th minute. A penalty kick for Mbappe, scores 2-1. 90 seconds later, scores again on this crazy, wicked, this volley shot that he took, and that made it 2-2. Went into overtime. Second overtime with only 10 minutes, or how much time was left? I think it was 10 minutes left. Messi scores again to put them up 3-2. Everyone thought the game was over. And then once again, it was Kylian Mbappe scores his 3rd goal. Just crazy. I couldn't believe it. He scored another PK, but it was a handball in the box. It went to shootouts, and I just sat there like this. There was not a moment that it wasn't tense. At one point in after the first half, it was 2-0. For the first I would say 20 minutes, it would have to be the first 10-15 minutes of the second half. I'm just oh my gosh, this is crazy. It looks like the game is over. I couldn't believe it. And now Messi gets his first World Cup, which means now he will be officially a god in Argentina. He'll be like Diego Maradona. And man, like Mbappe got the golden boot because he had 8 goals, 3 in the finals. And if you guys know who Mbappe is, Mbappe now has the most goals ever in a World Cup finals. He's been to 2 World Cup finals, scored 1 last 4 years ago, another 3. He's got 4 goals in the World Cup finals. No one has ever scored more goals than him in the World Cup finals. And he's just going to keep adding on to it. He's that good. And he's like 23 years old, right? And Messi won the golden ball, right? The golden ball, which means the best player of the tournament. So he got everything that he needed. I actually thought he was going to get the golden ball too, but golden boot. But that went to Mbappe, just a consolation prize for that. But like I said, best soccer game ever that I've ever seen. So intense. My motions were left and right. The cool thing was I had a bet on the game. During the game, I had a bet for dinner, and I said Argentina would win, and I won free dinner, so I'm really, really happy about that. I'm going to collect that today. In other news, like that was a big one. There's nothing close to it. All the other sports, it just dwarfed in comparison to what happened in the World Cup. But in the NFL, a couple games on the slate. Well, there's a ton of games. I'm not going to talk about all of them, but Philadelphia beats Chicago 25-20. They are now 13-1. In a huge game, it was Dallas. The Dallas Cowboys lost the Jacksonville Jaguars, which was really bad, in overtime, 40-34. Detroit, on a roll, defeat the New York Jets 20-17. They're now sitting 7-7, which is awesome for them. They could squeak into the playoffs. It's a wild card playoff game. Kansas City Chiefs, not sure what's going on with them. They eked out a win in overtime over Houston, which is the worst team in the league. Las Vegas defeats New England 30-24. And, of course, the LA Clippers, LA Chargers defeat Tennessee 17-14. Tennessee was missing 7 starters, by the way. Cincinnati beats Tampa Bay 34-23. Tampa Bay is now like 6-7. They're under 500 once again. And the New York Giants barely defeats the Washington Commanders 20-12, so they have the upper hand in winning that division. Last but not least, MMA. There was a last fight, the last UFC fight night of 2022. Middleweights were in action. Jared Cannonier versus Sean Strickland, and Cannonier wins a split decision. But even bigger news is Conor McGregor. Conor McGregor says he is 100% coming back, and it looks like he's going to be fighting middleweight. So he's not satisfied of with just 3 weight classes. He's gonna go more, right? He was former 2-division champion, wants to test the waters at middleweight. He won the 145-pound championship, the 155-pound championship. He fought at 170 pounds, and now he's going to be fighting in the middleweight, which I think is going to be really hard for him. That's 185. I think it's really tough, but it means that he's gained a lot of weight. So let's see what happens there in that when he comes back for that fight. All right, so either way, there it is. That is the top news in sports and news around the world. Hope you guys really enjoyed that. But you know what that means. It is the golden time. And yes, it is the golden time, a time of praise and worship to the Holy Trinity. Hope all of you guys are looking forward to giving glory to God and the Holy Spirit. So, what are we going to praise and worship today? We're going to start off with the fulfillment of hope, and then we'll sing Paradise, and we'll end things off with I Have Only God. So, as one body of the Morning Star Drive, let's spend this time giving praise, honor, and glory to the Holy Trinity.
Some people wait, hoping for what they expect could be. Those kind of people know a shadow of heaven's perfect joy. Even though hope may be burning in their hearts, what they're expecting will never come true. Joy within their hearts. Such are the people who keep hoping the Lord will come. They feel heaven only within their heart and thoughts. this and be thankful each day. Sing it of her glory with all your heart, will, and your life. This is the best life, joyful and meaningful. Love doesn't leave regret. We have fulfilled our hope. Others haven't fulfilled theirs yet. Our joy is heaven, theirs is earth. What we have gained can't compare. Know this and be thankful each day. Sing it of her glory with all your heart, will, and your life. This is the best life, joyful and meaningful. Love doesn't leave regrets. Sing it of her glory with all your heart, will, and your life. This is the best life, joyful and meaningful. Love doesn't leave regrets. Sing it of her glory with all your heart, will, and your life. This is the best life, joyful and meaningful. Love doesn't leave regrets. Love doesn't leave regrets. Love doesn't leave regrets.
Is this a dream? Can't believe it. All that I want, it's much. I keep on smiling about it. I'm feeling so excited. Uh-oh.
This is the awesome fruit of the Lord's deep love. This joyful celebration of our rapture.
I'm on this bright golden stage. My spirit is shining all day. I am hit with this heavenly groove. Dance, dance, dance. My eyes are on the Trinity. They look at me with such love. Sing, sing, sing. My eyes are only on the Lord. He looks at me with such love. Thankful I move, joyful I groove. Love is my vibe, eternal paradise. Thankful I move, joyful I groove. Love is my vibe, eternal paradise.
I am happy, so I sing and praise all my days. To my God, my groom, eternally praise his ways. I respond with thanks, assignment, and the love of a bride. To the heavens offer glory, glory on high. We have been longing for the rapture, it is God's dream and ours. With the Lord's great condition, and love rapture is finally fulfilled. This time of love with the Lord is not my true blessing. I love for how long? Eternity.
This is the awesome fruit of the Lord's deep love. This joyful celebration of our rapture.
I'm on this bright golden stage. My spirit is shining all day. I am hit with this heavenly groove. Dance, dance, dance. My eyes are on the Trinity. They look at me with such love. Sing, sing, sing. My eyes are only on the Lord. He looks at me with such love. Dance, dance, dance. My eyes on the Trinity. They look at me with such love. Sing, sing, sing. My eyes are only on the Lord. He looks at me with such love. Glory to God in heaven. Love to the Holy Spirit. Love is my vibe. Eternal joy to the Holy Son, Lord. Love crowns are celebrating. Love is my vibe. Eternal paradise.
I am happy, so I singing praise all my days. To my God, my groom eternally praise his ways. I respond with thanks, excitement, and the love of a bride. To the heavens offer glory, glory on high. We have been longing for the rapture, it is God's dream and ours. With the Lord's great condition and love rapture is finally fulfilled. This time of love with the Lord is now my true blessing. I love for how long? Eternity.
God of love, God of unchanging love, you've called and chosen me, loving me endlessly. God of power, God of unyielding power, never forsaking me, you are my help. Mighty God, I am yours to love evermore. Mighty God, I am yours, your bride for all time. From all the world you've chosen me, and now I have firmly set my mind. I will certainly live according to your will. Mighty God, I am yours to love evermore. Mighty God, I am yours, your bride for all time. From all the world you've chosen me, and now I have firmly set my mind. So I certainly will fulfill your will, my God. You're my Jehovah God, who has led me this far. Please lead me all the way. I'm calling on you alone, and living by only your word. With all your authority and your power, you constantly help me. With all your authority and your power, you keep me from harm. You are with me all the time, always giving me strength and hope. I've nothing to fear, because I only look to my God. You're my Jehovah God, who has led me this far. Please lead me all the way. I'm calling on you alone, and living by only your word. With all your authority and your power, you constantly help me. With all your authority and your power, you keep me from harm. You are with me all the time, always giving me strength and hope. I've nothing to fear, because I only look to my God. With all your authority and your power, you constantly help me. With all your authority and your power, you keep me from harm.
And that was I Have Only God. Before that was Paradise, and of course, the fulfillment of hope. And I hope you guys really enjoyed that time of praise and worship to the Holy Trinity. And it really prepared your hearts for the next section today, which is the practical word study, and something that a lot of people really look forward to because so many times we listen to the word, but we just don't know what to do with it and what kind of actions we can take to put that into reality. And there's a couple things that I was thinking about, especially with this week's message. It's a little bit difficult and harder to kind of, extract because there's a lot of conceptual parts in there. But the first one I did want to talk about is the one point Sunsi made was, if you explain well, if you explain clearly, show evidence. Like, this is so important. If you explain well, show evidence, step by step clearly, then terrible things would not have happened. And of course, this was talking especially at the time of Jesus, and of course comparing to the time right now, but the fate is determined by what you say, how you explain, and how you show evidence step by step in a clear manner. So I do think one of the things that all of us need to be able to do is to testify well, right? So the more and more these trials come out, the more and more we're going to see that, this is what's happening, and people are going to be starting to ask us questions. And we need to be those that can explain very clearly with biblical evidence, right, why, we believe in providence in this history, right? So I do think we need to have that mentality to be able to explain in a clear and in an evidential way, right? And we could talk about step by step. So the one big thing that I think the big question people are going to ask is about the Lord's second coming in spirit, like the Holy Son and Jesus coming in spirit and not in the body, right? And of course, for me, like, I want you guys to be able to do it really, really well, including step by step in reason with also good evidence and using the evidence in the Bible in a good way and explaining it in a reasonable, rational manner also, right? So the first thing that we would definitely have to talk about is God does not come in the body, he comes in the spirit. Right? So this is why the Lord, the Messiah comes in spirit and not in the body, right? So what we know is, what are the verses that show that God will come as a human being or in the body of a human being? Well, number one is, we have verses like Isaiah chapter 11, verse 1 and 2, that there'll be a branch from the stump of Jesse, right? Which means talking about Jesus, coming from the lineage of Jesse, which is King David's father. And King David was promised by God that the Messiah would come from his lineage. So just from that itself, knowing that it's come from the stump of Jesse, that King David was promised that the Messiah would come from his lineage, shows that it's going to be a human being. Right? We know that. The second thing is Isaiah 7:14 says that be born of a virgin, which means born of a woman. So the second thing we need to know is coming as a human also means born of a woman. Yeah? The virgin part people can debate, but they cannot debate the part that he's coming through a woman, which means a physical human being. Right? Micah chapter 5 verse 2 also states, this is where the prophecy comes from for King David, is come from the same hometown, from the line of David, which is in Bethlehem. That's where David comes from, right? So Jesus also was born in Bethlehem, right? His father and mother, his father's from the line of Judah, where David comes from. Okay, so Micah 5:2 says he'll come from Bethlehem. So we know that there's a place where he's going to be born, what lineage he's going to be born from, and he's actually born from a woman. Right? So we look at this and say, he's coming actually as a human being, right? And then I'll have like a segue verse, like Daniel chapter 7, verse 13, where Daniel says he sees a vision at night, he sees the Son of Man coming on the clouds, right? Now, why is this important? This is a connecting point because in Matthew 24:30, it also says the Lord's second coming is coming on the clouds. But when you look at Daniel 7:13 and all the other prophecies we just looked at, coming from the lineage of King David, coming from Bethlehem, born of a woman, it is obviously coming from the earth. And Daniel's prophecy, right? Daniel's prophecy is a vision. Right? It's a vision that he sees at night. And the reason why this is so important is because when you look at what the Bible says, it says that, where is it from? It's from Hosea. Talks about, was it Amos? Oh my gosh, I've lost this verse in my head already. I'm doing it off the top of my head. The verse that says, I spoke to the prophets in parables and I spoke to the prophets in dreams and visions, and I told parables through them. Where was that? I think it's in the book of Hosea. I really do. Right? So, I'm going to have to take a look at that too. Is it in chapter 12? Was it chapter 12? I can't even figure it out. Oh, yeah. Hosea chapter 12, verse 10. I spoke to the prophets, gave them many visions, and told parables through them. Right? So here's God saying that I spoke to the prophets like Daniel. And Daniel says, in my vision at night, in a vision, right? But in Hosea 12:10 says, I spoke to the prophets, gave them many visions, and told parables through them. So we know that clouds are a parable. Right? So then when you understand this point that, yeah, in the first coming, it happened like this. Daniel 7:13 talks about the vision at night, but also there's many other prophecies there that talk about him coming from the earth, which means the clouds are a parable. Matthew 24:30 says exact same prophecy, which if you compare it to Daniel 7:13 is the exact same thing. And then of course we know like history repeats itself. Ecclesiastes 1:9, 3:15 all talks about repeated history. Right? And then the question is, did Jesus come in the clouds? No, we know it's absolutely happened because Matthew 5:17 says that Jesus came to fulfill the prophecies, which includes Daniel chapter 7, verse 13. If you even go to Matthew chapter, I think it's Matthew chapter 11, and I think it's verse 15, I think, right? Maybe that's not the one. Yeah, so verse 13, Matthew 11:13 says, for all the prophets in the law, meaning the entire Old Testament, prophesied, past tense, until John. So John was the last prophecy in Malachi, right? Chapter 4, verse 5 and 6. But if he's the last prophecy, that means everything else has been fulfilled, which includes Daniel 7:13, right? And Jesus came to fulfill them, not to abolish them. So what do the clouds mean? Clouds mean Hebrews chapter 12, verse 1. Proverbs chapter 25, verse 14 talks about the clouds of people. Then you can go to the chart of what physical clouds are, right? So what am I doing here is I need to explain clearly with biblical evidence why the Lord's second coming has to come in spirit, right? Talking first about the first coming, right? So come as a human. I use those verses, him coming as a human. My segue verse is Daniel chapter 7, verse 13, which connects to Matthew 24:30, which is the second coming. Then I talk about the repeating history. And then did Jesus come in the clouds? Absolutely not. Even though all prophecies were fulfilled, including Daniel chapter 7, verse 13. And then I talk about the answer of what the parable of clouds are. So what am I doing? I need to be able to explain, showing evidence. Very, very important for us to do this so that terrible things would not happen in the future. We need to explain it very, very well to people in a manner where people say, even if I don't believe what you say, I understand where you're coming from. Even if I don't believe, I understand where you're coming from, right? And that's the best we can ask is someone says, I understand now why you believe this way. They don't need to believe what we believe. They don't, right? But at least if they can understand clearly step by step, then they're not going to think we're a bunch of freaks or whatever else is like that, right? So there's one of the things that I would speak very, very clearly about and clearly of. Right? And that's one thing that I would get all of you guys to understand at that level too. What is it? Remember, explain clearly, show evidence step by step, right? Then terrible things will not happen and our fate, the people's fate, or even Sunseem's fate is determined by what we say, right? As a people who are giving testimony. The second thing that I would talk about, and I think I want to talk about this last week, was about the John the Baptist of this time period. And Sunseem did talk about it last week. It's in the message last week, so I can easily talk about this too. And of course, everyone knows he's talked about the Unification Church, and he said failed. So they failed just like John the Baptist did. And those of you guys don't know, the leader, Reverend Moon, born in 1920 in North Korea. Well, before it was actually North Korea, but that's where modern day North Korea is. And he was, basically his family became Christian when he was a child. And then 1947, convicted by the North Korean government of spying for South Korea. And he was given a 5-year sentence to the labor camps. Okay? Now, eventually, Reverend Moon and the other prisoners were freed by United Nations and United States troops in 1950. Okay, so that's when he got out. That's during the Korean War. And then 1954, so remember this number, 1954, he founded the HSA, Holy Spirit Association for the Unification of World Christianity in Seoul. This is 1954. Remember, there's the central figure path, which is 21, 3.5, 21. So 1954 is when he started that organization. So 1954 plus 21 years for the public life is going to be until 1975. right? 1975 is supposed to be the grave period, 3.5 years. And if you guys take a look at all the different news, the biggest news coverage that happened in 1975 all over the world was the blessing ceremony in the Unification Church. All over the world, ABC News in America, Indonesian news, Japan, they were talking about it, Australian news all had it. They were all talking about these blessing ceremonies with 1,800 couples, 3,000 couples. The one I was reading in Japan was a lot of parents were so against it, but they went against their parents' wishes and went to Korea to go through the blessing and stuff like that too, right? So that was a big thing where all this like negative press started to come out because of the blessing ceremony starting from 1975. So if 1975 is the beginning of the grave period, what happens 3.5 years later? 3.5 years later, 1975 to 1978 and a half, which is June, right? And that's where, June, that's why you have to understand is 1978, June was the reason why Alpha Day was June 1st, because it's supposed to be, they're supposed to be working together from 1978 and a half, right? Which is June, but of course, he went his own way instead and said that he himself was the Messiah and such. And that's why Sunseam had to come out in June. So a lot of people don't understand, like, why did he just start in the beginning of 1978? It's because he's matching with the John the Baptist, which has a very similar path. Remember, 1954 to 1975 is the first 21 years of public life. 3.5 years of the grave period. Started in 1975, news coverage about the blessing ceremony, negative all over the world. And then 3.5 years in 1978 and a half, which is June. And that's when him and they should have been working together from June 1st, 3.5 years after the grave period started for them in 1975. But it didn't happen in that way. So you need to know this very, very clearly too. Right? And last but not least, I think is a very good practice, especially we have 5 days before Christmas comes in, or it's going to be 5 days before Christmas, is to read the story of Jesus' birth again, watch movies on the birth, and just really get yourselves in, just put into the moment of how great and how amazing this day truly is. And I think one of the points made from Sunseam was, when does history begin? It's from the moment of birth. Right, from the moment of birth. So that thing is something that story, read the Bible, whether the book of Luke is a good story about Jesus' birth, or go watch movies on it just to see the beginning of the nativity story, right? And I hope that's something, those 3 things are things that you guys can do really, really well, understand it really well too. Remember, the big thing that I got from this week's message for myself is explaining and showing evidence and explain step by step in a clear manner, or terrible things don't happen. And that's something that we have to understand as a group. We should know at least the basics and be able to explain it in such a way where everyone says, got it. That makes sense to me. Even if I don't believe it, I understand now why you believe this way. And I think that's going to be a very, very clear exercise for all of us to do too. You guys can, a lot of this stuff, I have this on my Patreon. You can watch the videos of my Clouds lecture. You can watch the videos of my Last Days lectures, watch the videos of my Holy Son. All these lecture trainings are all up there so that it can help you guys to do it much better. And the reason I'm saying the Patreon, not just to toot my horn and say that, hey, you guys should start paying me or whatever it is there's good content on there where you guys can study it on your own. You don't need to say, hey, leader, can you take time out of your schedule and teach me, which is going to be a very difficult thing, right? Or you're gonna have to wait for someone to start teaching a newcomer and see if you can even sit in. But with the videos that we have on lecture training and the actual lectures that I do, you guys can do it on your own time and do it with the lessons that you want to learn from too. All right? So there it is, guys. That is the word study for today on this practical word study. And I hope that it really helps you guys out to understand the words in a much deeper way also, all right? So let's get into the song of choice for today. And of course, it is Christmas time, and I'm playing a lot of Christmas music. And today is Korean Tuesday, right? Because it was Japanese, but I couldn't find a lot of Christmas songs. But, Korea is a super Christian nation, so they have tons of Christmas songs. So I'm going to go to this girl group called Bestie. I think it's a girl group, right? And this song is called Jang Christmas. And those of you guys who know, Jang means like awesome or the best, right? So here is Bestie, a girl group, and this song is called Jang Christmas.
난지 벌써 2달째야
괜찮아 나 옆에서 S처럼
이 겨울이 춥다 하얀 눈이 싫다 네가 없는 크리스마스 아니 짜증나 Very lonely Christmas I want a lovely Christmas 네가 없는 크리스마스 아니 제발 돌아와
누구랑 있니? 텅 빈 옆구리가 난 이렇게 싫어한다 너는 다른 사람이랑 있니? 집에는 라면 한 봉지도 없어 네가 와서 좀 끓여줄래
예전처럼 내 곁에서 따스하게 감싸줘요 Tonight is just for us, oh my love Yeah, yeah, yeah 이 겨울이 춥다 하얀 눈이 싫다 네가 없는 크리스마스 아니 짜증나 Very lonely Christmas I want a lovely Christmas 네가 없는 크리스마스 아니 제발 돌아와 You, oh babe
And that is Bestie. That's a girl K-pop group, and that song is Jang Christmas. I hope you guys really enjoyed that song, and it was a very festive melody. And I'm sure a lot of you guys out there probably have no idea what they were singing about, but that was a Christmas song, Jang Christmas. All right. So let's get into the final segment for today, and I hope you guys really enjoyed this. This is going to be kind of going over. This is Provi in the media, and we're going to go over what happened in the second trial on December 16th. To be honest, not a lot of things reported about it. Remember, it's a trial. It's pretty much a lot of things that we've already talked about, but I just want to make sure that you guys understood what was happening. And of course, there's going to be another trial next month also in January. I'm not sure the exact date yet, but it's something, as long as we have these updates once a month, just knowing what happened in the trial, we're able to pray for it in a better way. Let's get into what exactly happened there. So the second trial was on last Friday, the 16th, and it was the 12th Criminal Division of the Daejeon District Court. So it's all in Daejeon, right? So, a couple of arguments that happened there, very, very consistent, is basically the lawyer for Sunsim was saying, as he consistently stated during the police investigation, the defendant Sunsim did not commit adultery or molestation of the victims, and there was no evidence of this, and the victims, could not be seen as physically unsettled, so they were not unable to resist. So, this is kind of more of the arguments that lawyers have to give. It's not, the thing that we all have to understand is, when we're going into the court of law, it's different than the arguments that we have. It's more having to do with the law itself. So the defense and the way that the defense is made is not going to be made the same as how we argue with each other. Well, I saw this and I saw that. No, well, why do you always say this? No, it's got nothing to do with this. So, a lot of times you might be thinking, hey, why are they saying it like this? It has to be said, it's in the court of law. It must be done in the proper way. So once again, the lawyer says, as he consistently stated during the police investigation, the defendant did not commit adultery or molestation of the victims. There was no evidence of this, and the victims could not be seen as physically unsettled, so they were not unable to resist. So, that's kind of one of the things that we talked about in, the pre-trials and such, where the defense was saying that, hey, because Sunsim is this type of person, there was no way that they could resist, kind of thing, right? So that's why they're talking about it in this way. And of course, previously we know that in the first trial that was on November 18th, the month before, the prosecution said, Sunsim committed a crime by exploiting the victim's inability to resist, right? So there you see the reason why the defense said that is because that's what the defense was trying to say about Sunsim, right? In the first day, right? So you got to understand is, the defense is saying because of this reason, and we have to counter with, no, it can't be because of that kind of thing. And that's why they're saying, no, there was nothing physically there to make them unable to resist, right? Also, what it said in the video, and we don't know much information on this, but there's some video evidence submitted by the prosecution and the defense, right? So the people accusing Sunseem are saying, oh, there's a video of this, and this, and the defense attorney said, Sunseem, sorry. Prosecution is their side. We're the defense side because we're the ones being accused. Basically said, we believe that the CD video will not have admissibility as evidence. And there's a possibility that the prosecution may use it and violate the law. So the interrogation should be conducted after deciding who to take evidence first. So it's basically just talking about they want to put in some video evidence. No one knows what's really on it, right? And basically they're saying is the original video is not there, so it's inadmissible. And remember, this is purely about law, right? So, there's going to be a written opinion written by Sunseem's side citing the findings that the CD video is not the original and the victim discarded the mobile phone containing the video, so the identification with the original is not recognized, which means, we got to know what the identification of the original video, and I'm assuming from that you can check if it's, if you can check if it's like edited or they did something to the video or not, but it's not the original video, so they're saying that it is inadmissible evidence. But the prosecution is also saying the recording was downloaded from the cloud while the victim changed their smartphone, and they also said even in the Supreme Court precedent, copies without artificial modifications are adopted as evidence, and the appearance of accessing the cloud, including the victim statement, was realized. It will help judge the adequacy of evidence. So that's kind of one of the things that they are going to be talking about. So that's all there is. So remember, this is just a trial, and it's just starting up. The first trial was basically these are the counts, the offenses against you. Do you plead innocent or guilty? They give their opening statements, and then today was basically the first day of evidential trial and stuff like that too. So it's basically, these are not like the trials you see on TV and dramas. It is much more boring, and you're not going to get as much excitement as you see on TV shows because it's all dramatized. So if anything else, we see that the big contention that they have right now is the video. Is it admissible or inadmissible? We don't know much about the video. We don't know what it is. So is it altered? Is it edited? We don't know, but according to the law, it seems like it says it has to be the original video with the original print on it, but we don't, they don't have that. So there's going to be arguments over this, and I think that's something we can really pray about also, right? We got to pray about all these other different things detail by detail. I think it'll be a lot easier for us to pray about it if we have more details too. Like I said at the very beginning too, I don't see how like this evidence can make people stumble, because I think everyone already knows that there's a trial going on and stuff like that. So for me, it's just kind of like, yeah, it's just facts. The only thing that I want to talk about is, hey, my opinion is, what are the things that we should be praying about? I think we should talk about the admissibility, pray about that, the admissibility of that the video, right, from the smartphone or whatever it is, right? And really, continuously pray for the prosecution. They're the one coming against us. Pray for Sunseem's defense lawyers, right? Pray for the judge, right? So we're not here to pray curses on people. We're here to make sure that the system is done in the right way, right? According to God's law. Yes, there are going to be times things are corrupt and whatnot, but we can't believe those things. We just got to pray about it, and that's going to be our biggest weapon. We got to pray about it. And I'm hoping that you guys, after hearing just this kind of small update, you guys will be able to pray a lot better about Sunseem's situation too, because, yeah, the more we know, personally, I think the more we know, the better. And I don't want to get into, he said, she said stuff. Mine is more, this is what the facts come out so far. We really got to pray for this. And, I don't think there's going to be the judge won't be making a decision anytime soon. It's probably not going to be for another 2-3 months before all this trial ends, and then the judge makes their decision, and then there's going to be an appeal and stuff like that too, right? So that is something that we do have to understand is, regardless of who wins this case, there's going to be an appeal. If the prosecution loses, then the prosecution will appeal. If we lose, we're going to appeal. And then, of course, it's going to go to the third round to the Supreme Court and stuff like that, too. So when we look at it, yeah, it's going to be a pretty crazy year, right? And like we heard at the Wednesday message last week, and what Pastor Joan talked about for the JS service on not Sunday, last Sunday, but the Sunday before that, 2023 is going to be a rough year. right? The winds and the rains, if they don't come, we're not going to know which trees are deeply rooted. We're just not going to know. And this is why we have to be those that are super strong, that we're not going to be shaking. We're going to be those that really pray for this situation, let God take control of this, and that whatever God's will is, let it happen. Let it happen because it's God's will. And I really hope that all of us will have that wanting in our hearts to do this so badly because we want God's history to thrive and be fulfilled. Remember, we have one final will that happens next year, right? It's like the final one because we know time times half of times that final will is 2023. What is it? We don't know. But it's going to happen, and we need to be those. What we do right now is going to determine whether we make it to that final day, right? And of course, yes, we're not talking about the world ending, not kind of any of that crazy stuff, the end of the world apocalypse stuff. But, we want to be those that make it to that blessed day, 1335. Okay, so that's kind of the update for you guys. Hope you guys, if you have any questions or comments, go ahead and leave it below. Would love to hear what you guys thinking. I don't have any more information besides that because that's all there is out there. It's public information. The problem is mainly all in Korean, so that's the harder part. So, and it's a very, very short article. I don't see it in any English websites or stuff like that too. But yeah, either way, that is Provi in the media for today. Hope it's something that keeps you up to date with what's going on with Sunsteam's trial. It's probably be only done once a month because the trials are once a month either way. Okay, so there it is, guys. That is the end of today's Tuesday podcast. Hope you guys had an amazing and awesome day. Would love to hear from you guys. Put your comments below. Have any questions, comments, feedback? Would love to hear it too, all right? Everyone, have a wonderful and awesome Tuesday, and we'll see you guys again tomorrow on the Morning Star Drive on 117.8.
It's the Morning Star Drive 117.8. You soaring up with sky, now's the time, don't delay. I'm sitting in my ride and it's time to fly. So let's realign, just listen and fill your mind.
I'm burning with desire and the passion. Nobody can stop me when I'm like this. I got my head in the zone, I'm on the Morning Star Drive, I'm burning with desire and the passion. Nobody can stop me when I'm